Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now proceed to the panel discussion. Please help me welcome the moderator, Mr. Charles Anderson, Associate Vice President, Head of Telecoms and Mobility, IDC Asia Pacific. Let us give him a very warm welcome. 我们是热烈掌声欢迎我们这一个场次的主持人。And we would also like to welcome with a very warm round of applause the keynote speakers who would join the panel discussion. Please help me welcome Dr. Tingwei Li, Senior Vice President of Sales and President of Greater China Broadcom. 热烈掌声欢迎。Next, we would like to welcome Mr. Ramesh Kasanupalli, Visionary of the FIDO Alliance. Mr. Francois Guibet, Executive Vice President and President of Greater China and South Asia Region, ST Microelectronics. 热烈掌声欢迎。Last but not least, please help me welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Haggins, co-founder and CTO of Smart Things. I will now turn the program over to Mr. Anderson.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming back. I thought after my presentation a few more of you might have left, but I'm happy to see that you stayed around for the panel discussion. In my discussion, what I talked about was that I think it's very important to be pragmatic about these solutions. And a lot of us talk about where it's going to go in 2020. But what I'd like to start off by doing is asking Francois, well, what do you think is going to happen in 2014? What is really going to start driving this?
Well, for the moment, it is an emerging application, even if, of course, we've been doing a lot of internet things before. But today, the wearables are just emerging. Then there is a wave of the smart city, the smart home, the smart card, and so on. The smart car, not card. And this will take a little bit of time. But what is important is that all the ingredients of success are there. You have seen it in most of the presentation. There will be even the security of the transaction. There is obviously the capability of doing from NXP, Broadcom, and us a lot of things between sensing, microprocessor, power, and analog. And therefore, there is a standardization. There is now protocol on connectivity, which are very strong, very well understood from NFC, ultra-wideband, you know, all, let's say, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth Low Energy, and so on. And this is well defined and accepted in the engineering community as the way in Zigbee to secure, let's say, all this connectivity. So, in my opinion, this market will develop very well. There is already some success on the wearables. It is marginal today, as you know, but there is all the ingredient to make it successful in the next 2 or 3 years. And on top of that, as we say, there is other application like the healthcare and so on, which will be almost mandatory application. There will be therefore a traction from other activities that will be not just for wellness and fitness activity, but for the real end demand of the healthcare and the smart city and many, let's say, more applications.
Tingwei, do you have any comments you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think to my view, you see our custom and whole ecosystem. This year it's really different. It's a big year will be, and you see all set up special people. It's like 20, 30, even 100 people for doing IoT stuff. And I think that China and the US, these two big markets, the scale may also help take off this, because when you see the challenges, you know, we still see the fragmentation and also scale shortage to how the end-to-end solution. So even different industries. So for us as a Broadcom, we try to enable this innovation as much as possible. Just like I showed you before, we are working actually totally different across the industry. We try to accomplish as much as possible the job we can do. Then they put the sensor and put the idea. It's become, people love the products. So I think this year you will see it's a real, very important year.
Okay. And over to Jeff and Ramesh here. So if you start looking at maybe some more solutions that you think might start taking off initially in the coming years, what other near-term opportunities do you see?
So in our world, excuse me, in Smart Things is in home automation. You know, we actually look at things, industries that where the incumbents wouldn't necessarily call it the Internet of Things, right? Like home security, right? The large players in the United States, like ADT, don't necessarily think of their business as being an Internet of Things business, and yet it is the application of Internet of Things technologies that is going to disrupt the home security business. And I think we will look back on 2014 and talk about this year as being the beginning of the end for the legacy home security business and the beginning of a new way of looking at home security.
I just want to add one thing on that. I do think it is reaching that point of mass adoption in some countries. And my way of looking at that is, I was in the US recently for an event, and every single commercial break, there was some commercial about some type of an IoT smart home solution. And it's just all over the press, and then every billboard would have been for one of the different types of vendors for it. So it's starting to really reach that. And in a lot of the countries, like in Korea, all the 3 major operators are launching the solutions. A lot of the operators in Europe and the US are as well. So I think that's really going to start taking off. So, Ramesh, do you have any comments on other solutions for?
I think the interesting points have been made. I think the ecosystems and the solution ecosystems have to develop. I think 2014, 2015, we will probably see a lot of proliferation of these gadgets. It could be Google Glasses, it could be wearables, or these things. Those things will have to be wrapped around some kind of solutions, you know, and the verticals will have to develop. I think Dr. Lee's presentation, or the gentleman from AMD's the presentation, it was nicely put, you know. So there is going to be, based on the markets that are, a home security is a market, huge market in the US. It is not in the rest of the world. You know, so we always have to remember, any new technologies that are coming together, they are very geo-dependent. You know, a simple example that I can give you, back in when I was in college in India, we did not have many resources, so we used to have one Unix computer, and we had to create a virtual layer there, and multiple of us were using that. And later it turned out to be client server, and we did out of you know, necessity. And that's a huge thing. When people started talking to us about client server technology, I thought we did that in engineering college. You know, so depending on which geo you are in, these things have different contexts and different sensitivities.
I like that thought there. So let's think about this. So which geos then? So which regions do you think will be driving it, or which countries for maybe some different areas? And this is open to everyone as well. So.
Right. Like Jeff was mentioning earlier, the home automation and the home security systems is a huge thing in US. Internet of Things, while people say that it's going to be a growing market and stuff, Internet of Things have been there forever. Netflix is not a new company. What is that? The device that they put is Internet of Things. You know, and so the markets have been there. And now you have newer things that are coming together, like the bracelets and medical fitness and healthcare related stuff. You know, those things are, again, you know, they have the global market. You know, the people in US are equally aware. I mean, the people in India or China or Japan are worried about their health, unlike the home security. You know, so these bracelets come together from Samsung wearables, which will detect your healthcare monitor. Nike shoes actually detecting the speed at which you're running, how many kilometers you're running. These things have global market. You know, the interesting thing that we need to see is the markets that had a different kind of set of requirements, like I was giving an example during my speech, where a home thermostat. A home thermostat being controlled is no novelty. I mean, it's been there. But the problem is, if my next door neighbor operates that, you know, how that market is going to transform itself, how that's going to blend itself, is going to be the upcoming one. That's where the ecosystems have to develop, and the solutions have to develop, addressing some of these other things that haven't been addressed till now.
Anyone else have any comments on that about potential geos or regions or industries?
As I mentioned, I think the U.S. and China is big two-piece, very important. And U.S. take the technology leader, and also ecosystem more mature. But in Great China, in this area, even in Taiwan, you see, they can copy this kind of model and the scale, because it's very important for the IoT stuff. Now, the most challenge is fragmentation. So if you have some scale, then can overcome this fragmentation, become a real piece of business. So that will be easy take off. So I think these two regions will be very important. You will see next even 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
When you talk about scale, it's interesting to look at China because, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have the numbers correct or not, but I think they're looking at launching 300 million smart meters by 2015. So when you do a lot of forecasts, you have to take this into account. If it's done in China, it just blows that forecast up very quickly. So, I mean, the other big one we knew was with Telefonica in the UK, did one for, I think it was 25 million homes. But now you're talking about 300 as the first phase. So that's how it evolves.
But in Europe, you have Italy, you have Spain, you have UK, all of them. You will have India later on, and most of the ASEAN countries are also going to develop on e-metering and smart meter. So this is a big market worldwide. And therefore, I agree, US and China, US because of the innovation, China because of the size and the dynamic and so on. But you know, most of the time now, the innovation is spreading so fast and be deployed so fast that, you know, there is not so much anymore difference between the three major areas.
You know, I think we look at a few very important things, one of which is the consumer relationship with this device. And so from a geographic perspective, you know, this is what seems to be important from an adoption perspective. What is the relationship that the consumer has with this device? And how does that then translate into their desire to have visibility into things that they've never been able to have before, right? So whether my front door is locked or unlocked, or whether I left the thermostat, you know, set at a certain temperature, these are things that, you know, weren't possible before this device, right? And that's global.
Yeah. And it does get interesting because there's different device preferences and operating preferences by country as well, so it really complicates that. So, so as an industry, what can we actually do then to help this take off? Like, what should we be doing around educating the market or, you know, developing up skills to start driving this forward?
This is where the standards and open way of doing things come into picture. You know, like if a Samsung refrigerator can only talk to Samsung phone, then we have a problem. You know, so you have got to make sure the industry actually, just like how industry has blessed NFC and Bluetooth, they have to bless. So how do you protect the identity and security of, you know, who is operating that? You know, who is operating that when reams and reams of data being uploaded from various Internet of Things? How do you filter that? And how do you associate that with a particular thing? Without context, information is garbage. You know, he's a good man. Who is he? You know, you got to fully qualify and give a context to the data that is coming together. That's where industry can come together and then, you know, form standards around how these things actually process the data, communicate the data, associated data with the context. And that's where I think that otherwise what's going to happen is, with the speed at which the evolution is happening, now we'll also get into the same mode of, okay, let's do this first, let's fix the problem later. You know, so we really don't want to be in that mode, at least in the thing that's happening right now.
And Francois?
The electronic industry and the semiconductor industry has maybe to make it more visible to the other players, because the players of tomorrow are not automatically anymore the high-tech industry. You are talking, as we say, to watch manufacturer, to shoes manufacturer, to glasses manufacturer, to a lot of other potential, to healthcare, which is a very, let's say, new world in front of electronics and semiconductor. And this takes a little bit of time, but you know, the ability of the industry to show it as a solution which is now performing very well is very important. So both electronic and semiconductor industry should make it very visible to the organization, the government, the association, and all, let's say, the consumer people at large.
Yeah, I think awareness is a big problem right now. I think I spend a lot of time in Silicon Valley, and in Silicon Valley, everybody knows who my company is, right? But, if I go to Dallas, Texas, or Kansas City, Missouri, no one knows who my company is. And furthermore, they don't understand what's really possible with these technologies. And I think perhaps even worse, they feel they're overloaded with this type of inundation of new technologies and new wearable computing and new things for the home, new things for the car, and frankly, it's too much for the average consumer, right? And they have trouble seeing through all the noise and seeing things that are really, truly of value, right, that are going to help them solve real problems. So I think, at some level, that's not something that's going to solve itself overnight. It's going to take time. But that's actually our biggest challenge as a company right now, is just consumer awareness.
Yeah, I think, I think it's a very good comment. First, for like chip company point of view, before we are always concentrated for the technology. For example, small package and software loading, MCU already in there, everything there. But just like say, we how to help this kind of small, very innovation company like your company. So like we are in Shanghai with the Shanghai government and also Shanghai Tech University have a innovation center. So this is the platform. We can help this kind of innovate, become go-to-market. It's easy. So I think it's for chip company point of view, and also need working for not only for this, we also working for the like design company and sensor company. It's put together then and help this innovate, then quick to the market. So I think.
I may add indeed that to capitalize on the statement of our colleague, indeed, selling the fact that all of that is not just, for the sake of fashion and new, let's say, application, but for the major concern of the society. You have energy saving. We can do a lot here. We talk about the smart city and so on. You have everything concerning healthcare. This is a real demand, and this really concerns people. You have the one of security, transaction on your passport and so on, and access to the data. So everything which makes it very close to the need of the society, in other words, answering the society call, is very important here.
Okay. Now I'll go to one of the questions that was submitted. And Ramesh, I think this one's going to be geared towards you. It's from Andy Ye, and he says, we all know that IoT is the future. I just want to say, I hope so, otherwise I have to find a new job. It will change the whole industry and the way we live. But do we have any rules, principles, or laws to prevent all the data, especially in healthcare and financial services, because personal information is privacy. So the privacy thing came up. It always comes up at some point, so here we go.
Right, and that has always been a problem. Even with respect to United States, the privacy of medical records is held very close to the chest, as we all know. And then you have HIPAA regulations, these regulations, those regulations. And rest of the world is not as finicky about the medical records as it is in the United States. This is where I think the industry has to come together, particularly when we are going towards, pretty soon, if you see announcements from either Samsung or Apple recently, they are looking into medical chipsets that can go on to cell phones now as we speak. And these things, when they, ideally, I want to be able to, if I'm talking to some, my phone is all the time on my hand, and if somebody irritates me, I want my phone to tell me my BP is going up, and I don't see that being very far with looking at what Apple is trying to do. But if this data being uploaded to a backend service, to a cloud, if that's not protected and associated and secure, then you get into chaos. And this is where I think this has to come from the private industry. The public, if the government tries to impose those laws, then what's going to happen is you're getting into these medical facilities, the healthcare existing players, like for instance, Epic Solutions, these kind of companies that are out there, which are protecting the data very close to their chest for two reasons. One is primarily, for a number of years, last 20, 25 years, they have developed these systems. It was in a very proprietary format, the data was there. Moving from those systems to an open system is going to be a lot of work for them. And for a hospital, they don't really care if they're on the internet or not. When they walk into the office, that's when they want to see the data. But when you take that out and move it into the private industry and private cloud, if the security is not protected, identity is not protected, and privacy rules are not, followed, then you are really going to run into a lot of chaotic problems. And that particular segment will never take off if those standards are not established soon enough.
The next question we'll take from the audience, I'm pretty sure there's no name on it, so I think Jeff actually submitted this himself. The question is, what kind of applications and services do you think will be the most compelling in the home environment in the future? Did you put it in yourself?
I didn't, but it's a great question. So, it's certainly a good question for me because we look at the idea of home automation and the Internet of Things for the home as being a platform for revolutionizing services into the home, right? We don't think that home automation is there principally to turn on the lights or warm up the hot tub, as you're driving home. Home automation is there to help you optimize the supply chain for the home so that, when there's a leak in a water pipe, not only does the system turn off the water to the house to prevent damage, but it calls a plumber, right? And gets a plumber coming to the house to solve the problem. Or before the fan motor in your refrigerator goes out, the system detects that it's failing and gets somebody out to fix it before your refrigerator full of food becomes spoiled instead of afterwards, right? These are opportunities to optimize the entire value chain for the home. And that's really what this is all about. So, I think what we are just at the beginning of witnessing is that evolution of looking at services for the home in a completely different way.
I think that's a very interesting point because I think what we have in a lot of the home solutions right now is they're independent, but the full solution isn't there. My refrigerator can tell me that I'm low on milk, but it doesn't give me the milk, so I'm still low on milk. I could open the fridge and I know it's low on milk. What I want is it built into an ecosystem where it notifies the supermarket that then ensures it gets delivered at a certain point of time, and you automate that whole process because then it becomes that full solution. And this is where I want to see, it's about enabling these technologies, whether it's an appliance, whether it's a device, a consumer wearable, and it's taking it so it delivers value to either the consumer or to a company.
You bet.
Okay. Before I go back to the normal questions, I thought I'd give any brave souls who would like to raise their hand and ask a question. Oh, wow, that was fast. We have a question in the center, but please hold until someone gets you a microphone. Let's see how fast. He was pretty quick. He's running. There we go. Okay.
I have a question on the money proposition of IoT. Take the milk example. Okay, I'm gonna buy 1 pint of milk anyway, so there's no extra money spent. So who's gonna pay for the cost of IoT? I mean, up to now, the internet has been successful mainly on exogenous money proposition, i.e. in the .com era, it's shareholders' money. And currently, it's shareholders' money through M&A plus advertisement. These are all exogenous. And if we are talking about cost saving, efficiency, improvement, these are all endogenous money. And we all know that endogenous money is slow, gradual, cyclical, sensitive. So are we going to see bursting developments as we have seen in the .com or social media type of development, or are we going to see GE type, GDP growth plus a few percentage type of growth? Thanks very much.
Okay. I don't know if anyone has any specific comments on that, but I would love to take on the first part of it about where the money is. Funny enough, I've been looking at this example about milk for a long time. Not milk specifically, but the idea of how this whole ecosystem can evolve. And you're not going to order a single pint of milk, but it should automatically update some kind of a service that notifies you when you've got an order that's ready to be delivered, or you set it up where it gets delivered every Friday. And the components in that is you've got a network provider who would be providing that connectivity, so sometimes they might want to be the front. They then need to do a partnership with the smart home or smart appliance provider and link into their platform, then link into the grocery store chain. So no one's really doing this well yet, except watch what Amazon's doing in the US with the Dash, and it sort of blows that model. But there is money there and everybody benefits. The appliance maker wants to sell the appliances. The network provider wants it all running on their network. The grocery store, it builds up stickiness and could open them up to new customers. So there is money there, but obviously not in a single pint of milk. So.
I think there are a lot of good examples, though, where there is an opportunity to save money, right? The plumber example that I just used, right? If I can stop a leak and prevent $10,000 in damage to the home, right? Then that is worth spending money on as an insurance policy to prevent that disaster from occurring. So I think you have to look for cases like that in the near term where you really can follow the money and see an immediate value or return back from spending. Whether it's going to automatically order milk and groceries for me, over time, of course, and the person with the question was tangentially making this point. I mean, we do still waste 33% of the food we produce on this planet. There are opportunities to drive efficiencies into it, but that doesn't necessarily, change how I live my life in the short term.
Yeah, I have some comment. I think it's like in happening. I talked example about like a smart parking system. The platform can using advertising still, and also just like we are real case now in China. Some may be impact. For example, small grocery store. Now in the home, in the elevator, they have advertising. You can scan it, then know where are you, then it will be delivered. So they not need to open the store, saving the money for you. So they are, before only the delivering company, now they can also sell the products. So lots of examples. So some will be integrated. Some, I think industry will be an impact, and some create lots of opportunity.
I think what's happening right now is the technology evolution is happening, and what we need to see more is the ecosystem, a solution development, which is either going to deliver a business value, or a convenience value, or a user value, usability value. Unless there is some value that we're generating, the novelty does not sell. A solution sells. So. One of these, like a grocery store, if they want to promote the milk, particular brand of milk and want to deliver, that's money for them. That's the business value. If it is going to detect a leakage a month earlier and let me know, that's value to me. So these things will have to evolve into a focused solution. Right now, what's happening is technology is being developed. It's almost like NFC has taken a long time to actually find the right solutions, But today, NFC is everywhere. Everywhere. And so the technology is finding its way, solutions will follow. It's like always any technology evolution.
I know we're running low on time, but I want to give the audience one last chance at this. Maybe one more quick question. We have one over on the right there, but we'll need to make it brief or they won't invite me back next year.
Sure. So quick question. One of the challenges that we are facing is around the interoperability and lack of standards as far as IoT is concerned. So when will that day come when in a smart city, anybody could make a parking meter and put it across and it will work seamlessly with the solution that somebody is providing? Right now it is all silos. So everybody has their complete end-to-end solution. But how do we get unless the ecosystem develops through a standard-based mechanism, proliferation.
But what we know is that there is a need to move in that direction. And indeed, this at the speed of, let's say, the consumption, the infrastructure will evolve at the same time. Today, it's difficult, if you have an electrical car, to find the infrastructure. But it will come. There is already some trial in some cities and in part of the provinces and so on. So it will come. The problem is, obviously, people would like to get it immediately if they buy, an electrical vehicle, and it is not possible immediately. It's like the metering. You know, the metering is a very long also solution because you have to really go to so many housing solution and make it happening and make it working and being reliable and so on. It's very difficult. So, but nobody is questioning the end solution at the moment.
I also think we, as an industry, we get spoiled. You know, we tend to think that things aren't moving fast enough when in fact things are actually moving very, very quickly, right? We're iterating on these problems at a speed that is, you know, unprecedented, and we are going to solve the problems of standards. It's not going to happen fast enough for me, right? Because my business needs these standards. They would benefit me greatly. But there are R&D forces, there are market forces that are going to force these standards to be created. A simple example, you know, in the United States, we have a big home retailer called Lowe's that sells in the United States about $60 billion a year worth of home supplies, appliances, etc. They are forcing their appliance vendors to comply with a certain set of standards for Internet of Things connectivity, right? So the retailer, in this case, is in a position to help force a standard back on the manufacturer.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I would like to thank my fellow panelists for taking the time this afternoon to go through that, and thank you everybody for submitting the questions and for making it through a very long afternoon. I hope you found it worthwhile and you've learned a lot, but please join me in giving the panelists a round of applause. Thank you.